What's up, everybody? We're on a podcast now. I'm Alex, and in this video, I want to talk about Marvel games and Insomniac. A few days ago, we had the quote, "for many years to come," and that was in reference to Marvel Games talking about working with Insomniac, specifically Marvel Games general manager, and he was kind of just talking about, what it takes to, make Marvel games and the collaborations that they've had and wanting to build strong brand and wanting to find, and this is, by the way, pretty important because this is kind of what I always say too, finding basically studios that share the passion, kind of making it sound like finding studios that want to actually do it. You don't necessarily want to force these things on people that don't want to do it. And they brought up Wolverine specifically, actually, and they said it was a no-brainer to go to Insomniac for Wolverine, and they just talked about in general working with them. They said it was our shared culture and values that brought us together, and we're so proud to continue collaborating for many years to come. So kind of that, I guess, literal confirmation that they're going to continue. You could go back to the leaks, and many of us have done it, even multiple times. We know what the game plan is, right? Even to 2030, 2031, 2032. There is clearly a long runway of, Marvel working with Insomniac and them continuing doing stuff far, far beyond Wolverine. And we're talking 2, 3, 4 more games, at least, that we already know about, let's say, after Wolverine. In terms of what I want to say about it, just to kind of add my own commentary, and again, this is something I've brought up multiple times, and I think is probably the most important part of this entire thing, at least to me, as long as they want to do it. I feel, and this is, I think, become maybe more controversial as time has gone on. Well, number one, I do miss an Insomniac that has done multiple things at the same time. You think about Sunset Overdrive, or you think about obviously Ratchet and Clank being a more consistent kind of franchise. Consistent meaning when it releases, not consistent in terms of how good it is. And look, from the leaks, we know that they're still allowed to, I guess, make a Ratchet and Clank game. But between Rift Apart to whatever comes next will probably be 7, 8, 9 years in between them. So they're allowed to do it, but it just seems like it has to do one a decade there. And I can go back obviously to even Resistance is a personal favorite of mine that I've brought up so many times on the channel. But it really does rest on as long as they want to do these Marvel games. What I guess scares me, and it always has scared me, and again, maybe it's gotten more controversial as time has gone on, is if it ever feels like they're being pushed to do this, which I don't think is insane to say. I mean, I guess again, if you read all of the quotes, from this guy, again, it kind of gives off the vibe of, well, we want to work with others so long as they want to work with, with our properties. So I feel like the vibe there is that Insomniac specifically, if we're just talking about Insomniac, they want to do it. I know when Spider-Man 2 was coming out, I kind of brought up the same points, and not to counter my points, but other people were saying kind of at the same time, look at what these people, that are working for Insomniac, look at what they're saying. And it never really seemed to be any kind of question or shadow of a doubt that they didn't want to do Spider-Man 2 or they don't want to do Marvel games moving forward. They legitimately are okay going down that path. And that, for me, there's always going to be a little bit of hesitancy where it's I want you to be able to explore. I want you to be able to make, brand new IP. Another thing that I do want to bring up as well is I just don't always want the reliance on Marvel. And here's the thing, it's not to say they're hiding behind a Wolverine or Spider-Man. I don't necessarily mean it that way. I guess what I mean is I don't want them to every single game, becomes Marvel, right? Which, to be fair, let's say 4 out of 5 are going to be Marvel from this point moving forward. Okay, you're not establishing your own brands or your own IP in that way, right? You're kind of elevating Marvel's. The thing that scares me, and I think was pretty evident from Spider-Man 2, is the budget. Okay, if they can't, and it's not just look, any game that's coming out right now, this high AAA game from PlayStation is going to cost between 100 to 200 and 250 million, let's say, right? A God of War is going to cost 200 plus. A Last of Us or Intergalactic is going to cost 200 plus. But what about when you do a Spider-Man? What about when you do a Wolverine? Wolverine might be a smaller budget than Spider-Man, but you know what you always have to tack onto those? Is you always have to tack on the contract. This extra, $90+ million that you have to make just to give to Marvel for letting you do it. I just feel, and that's really, I would say, but beyond the creativity side and just making sure that they're okay doing it. The number one thing that I just kind of get worried about is every single game you do it, all right, whatever, but every single game now you're tacking on that extra third onto a budget and saying, hey, you got to make this back just to do that part of the budget, not even the rest of it. And that does scare me. Like, at the end of the day, that is a thing that really scares me, because it only takes one of these, by the way, to not work. It only takes Wolverine, even though Wolverine looks freaking awesome, okay? And I will be there, and I'll probably make 30 videos on the thing, right? But I mean, if that thing sells 5 million, that would be a massive failure, I think, to everybody involved, because you need more than that, probably even just to pay back the Marvel side of things. So that is just what concerns me about, and that's what I mean by the reliance on Marvel, right? Like, if you're always going to do it, you're always going to be strapped with this literal handicap. There's a handicap on you just by doing it, and you choose to do it every single time. All right, as long as you choose it, as long as you choose to do it. And I guess that's kind of where I would end it. As long as that passion is there, as long as they're always choosing to do it. But I also, at some point, because you never really know at these studios, like, we know that PlayStation gives a lot of freedom, and I like that. I like hearing that, and seems like everybody kind of says it. But I also do wonder, like, where the pivots happen. Like, who told Bluepoint to do a God of War multiplayer live service game, right? Like, did they choose that 100% on their own? Because then I have some serious questions for them. Or Days Gone, or, I guess Ben's studio, right? So they do Days Gone, they do a multiplayer live service game, it gets canceled, they're doing another multiplayer live service game. So they're actively choosing to do all of this stuff, and it's 100% their call, or are they being told by somebody else, and that's 20% of the influence? You never really know, and I also feel it maybe depends studio by studio, right? Maybe Insomniac being allowed to do a Ratchet and Clank game is like, all right, they have their freedom. Like, if they want to do Ratchet, they can do Ratchet. I would love them to do Resistance, by the way, but if they want to do Ratchet, they do Ratchet, and then beyond that, they choose to do Marvel. All right, I'm cool with that from that perspective. So let me know what you guys think. Make sure, as always, you're subscribed to the channel, bell icon turned on, and I hope to see you all on the next one.